STL101 is connecting, St. Louis natives of Ngara till here longer to the new people that are just coming into St. Louis to show them how amazing we are here in St. Louis. So Anthony, are you ready?
Hi everyone. Good evening. My name is Anthony Ezeokoye. I'm the founder of Raknida. For the record, the last time I spoke in public, this kind of forum is about 2 years ago, so I'm kind of rusty. So please pardon me. For context, I am a trained architect, but I've been a digital artist for 19 years. Started practicing professionally since 2007, and here and there I still do that. But actively, I'm CEO and founder of Raknida, an art tech company originally based in Nigeria, but thanks to the Arch Grants, we won the Arch Grants in 2024 and we moved to St. Louis. So that's just a little premise. And I've worked across advertising, 3D animations, motion design and whatnot. But particularly for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to be speaking about Raknida. And the title of my presentation is Putting Culture Where Life Happens. So yeah, we like to say, without art, the earth is just Yeah. When you walk into some kind of a space, maybe like a hotel, a restaurant, or whatever, how do you feel when you catch a glimpse of something you're familiar with from your culture? For me, my experience is, it's always very exciting. Like, oh, I remember the first time I walked into, Levels and even Africana, the murals on their walls kind of have like, those African masks. And for some of us who have visited spaces like, I think Buckham Street Box, somewhere around website groups, you would find out that the environment pretty much speaks culture, right? And that's part of the most interesting things about being in those spaces. Now, when you walk into a lot of spaces, a lot of places that we have around, you see stock imagery on their walls, and essentially, aside from those not being very inspiring, they don't really connect, right? So culture isn't just supposed to be decorative. It's actually infrastructure that drives community, that holds our community together. And I say this to say that essentially when you find those spaces that have those iconic pieces or those, mementos or whatever, it kind of makes for a good conversation starter and also, an avenue for people to actually bond over something very simple. So essentially, if we want vibrant communities, our walls and spaces cannot afford to be silent. We talk about art, inclusion, talent, and all that. So the question comes, what does culture bring? What does culture engender? And in my own experience, I would say 3 things: a sense of belonging, pride and identity, and also economic activities. Because at the end of the day, these pieces are created by people, real people, that oftentimes depend on these as a source of livelihood. It's not just, play. It's actually work, and it has economic value. Now, why? As a Nigerian myself, like I said before, I felt, that powerful feeling when I see something that reflects me in a space. Especially when I go to, foreign places and, places where I ordinarily wouldn't expect anything extraordinary. So like I was having a conversation with Jacqueline just yesterday, and she mentioned, we're talking about art of course, and she mentioned that in one of her visits to Bob Clark, that's the president, I guess, of Clico, that when she went into the space where I believe he owns, the sheer volume of Nigerian art and African art that she saw there made her feel like, oh my God, like it made her feel very much more welcome. It made her see him beyond just the person that every other person knows him to be. And they bonded very much on that level. So essentially, it made that space feel like home. But there's a problem, and that problem, talks about, it borders on distribution, borders on a lot of things that unfortunately the climate of today kind of amplifies. But I'm not going to go into that. But that's where Raknida comes in, right? So Raknida exists to make culture visible in everyday life and, to create opportunity for sustainable earning for artists, especially young ones, the young ones. So what's Raknida? Who are we? So Raknida is an art tech platform, and we help businesses, art lovers, designers, and whatnot get access to digital-first artworks that are culturally inclined and are created by underrepresented artists. So essentially, we are not trying to be the Sotheby's, Christie's, and maybe the Counts. We're not trying to be, the big guys. We're trying to just help the everyday artists, the underrepresented ones, to find opportunities to actually have their art be some sustainable means of livelihood for them. Even though we've seen overwhelmingly, the data shows that a lot of artists have to work 2 jobs or even more to fend for themselves. And this is regardless of how, extraordinary they are in the arts, which can be sad. Yeah. So, as a point of beginning, we started with a print-on-demand marketplace, where we amplify those cultural stories by young, underrepresented artists. And we've been fortunate enough to be integrated into the St. Louis ecosystem. I've been here for just 1 year, by the way, with my wife and my lovely little daughter. We came here thanks, like I mentioned before, to winning the Arch grants all the way from Nigeria, and we moved here to St. Louis. And since then, we've also gotten into the OMSO Anchor Accelerator program, which is currently running. I think it's called 6. Along with other things that we've won. My wife is an amazing voiceover artist. We've won a couple of awards thanks to her, and we've been featured in a couple of places for the work that we do. Now, why does it matter for communities? For businesses and institutions, art and culture basically drives foot traffic, makes people feel that sense of belonging, that pride in the places they work. And of course, if you work in those big organizations, those big corporations, there's something we do in Nigeria. I think on Fridays, you're allowed to dress in your cultural attire because, Nigeria has over 250 ethnic groups and several cultures at that, just Nigeria as a country. So on that Friday, when people dress in those colorful outfits, just like the one I'm wearing now, and some others, it's always really rich. So essentially, it creates that sense of belonging, that mutual understanding, and also that synergy and confluence of ideas. Talent attraction and retention. So people are attracted to cities like Atlanta, Texas, and whatnot because of the cultural depth and the richness. But I believe St. Louis is growing very strong in that regard. And of course, the local and global economy. This is talking about vertical integration and all that. People that pretty much feed the supply chain for art in a space. So culture isn't just a nice to have, essentially. It's a competitive advantage to any city, especially one like St. Louis that cares about immigrants and how they contribute to the economy. Raknida is making culture easier to live with. So we're expanding beyond artworks that you buy just once to, having artworks in spaces that get refreshed over time. And we're building technology. Like I mentioned, we're an art tech company. So we're building what we call the swap frame. It's a frame that allows you to effortlessly rotate your artworks in your space, alongside the art streaming platform. And we are using these tools to make cultural storytelling more accessible and enjoyable while making it scalable for businesses, designers, and cultural organizations. Culture is where life happens. And St. Louis, with its already global population and fast growing at that, I think the next step for us would be to actually commit to doing more cultural storytelling in our spaces. And the way we can do this is to actually engage culturally by having these pieces in our spaces. So let's put culture where life happens and build the kind of city where everyone feels like they belong. Like I said, we have in Raknida, and we're open to partner, we're open to work. At Raknida, we have raknida.com, that's our website. If you want to see more about me personally, you can go to Ezeokoye, that's Ezeokoye.com. There you'll see some of my works in the creative lab, just things I do sometimes outside of running my business. Thank you very much.